Good evening, NoFos. How are we all doing?
Evening all.
We're obviously joined this week by Tom Anvil Hibbard. Hi,
How you
Tom.
doing?
Thanks for joining us.
Doing-
Frontline events have already been cheeky. They've already said looking at the watch. Dead on 8. So, yeah, thanks, Frontline. Hi, James. Hi, Mr. Meat. Oh, he's upgraded himself. That sounds worse.
Whoa, Mr. Meat. No. That wasn't discussed. That could be changed back.
Nick, Danny, Kieran, Harry, Ryan, Andy, and Les. How are we all doing, gents?
Oi, gentlemen. Evening all.
So we're obviously joined by Tom this week. We're going to be talking about, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff, I'd imagine. I can see us diving down into some proper rabbit holes. If anyone's got any questions for Tom, throw them in the chat, and we can sort of pop through those as we go through. But Tom, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, how you got into airsoft, what are your favourite cheeses, something like that. You
know, Stilton.
Yes, my man.
I live just next to Stilton County, in the UK. So, I'm Tom Hibbard. That's me. I'm currently let's call it a content creator. That's what I do. So I make videos, articles, adverts, and other such stuff, largely for airsoft, but for some other stuff as well. My background is I'm a product design engineer. So I studied at Glasgow University. I got a degree in product design engineering, and I spent 16 years at Games Workshop in Nottingham.
Nice.
So I've worked as a magazine designer, as a packaging designer, as a hazardous products designer, as a product designer. I did, if anyone's familiar with Games Workshop's Citadel line, I had a large hand in the kind of reimagining of everything to do with Citadel. So the Citadel stuff was the paintbrushes and the paints and the carry cases and the tools and all of that stuff. I did all of that stuff as the senior designer for that team for about 10 years. I left in 2016 through some disagreements with the progression of the company, but let's not go into that too much. And I then was picked up by Airsoft Action as a kind of technical writer. So I did, and I handled some of the kind of technical articles for Airsoft Action. May as well go into how Anvil Airsoft came about.
Okay,
so my view of airsoft differs from the kind of the main commercial market, and Airsoft Action as a magazine has to cater to the masses, and the way I like airsoft didn't really kind of correlate with the way Airsoft Action needed to market that magazine. So ultimately, I took the YouTube channel, which we'd started with Airsoft Action, and in a very harmonious way with the editor, and we decided that because I'd created it and designed it and actually hosted it and ran it, I would take that with me. And Airsoft Action TV and Anvil Airsoft TV sound very similar, so that was all very nice. We didn't have to change anything much, and I took it off and did my own thing, really. So that's a very short story version of what happened. So that's my background. So I'm a product design engineer. Ultimately, I spent a lot of time designing products in the Far East, or for Far East production. So I've got a really good handle on what it needs for production, materials, all that sort of stuff. So I bring all that sort of stuff into airsoft as well when I look at an airsoft product.
I have the first question, just very quickly. What is a hazardous product engineer?
A hazardous product. So it was glues, sprays, solvents, all of that sort of stuff. So developing those products, so stuff to stick toy soldiers together, stuff to spray toy soldiers with, anything which
Nick in the chat there will be all over this because he's a tabletop gamer. So he'll
anything can be set on fire or explode. Basically, I had a hand in as well. I also did a lot of risk assessment and hazardous product assessment and toy safety and regulation stuff as well, which also kind of comes in quite useful when you're dealing with this sort of subject.
Oh, fair play, mate. So with the airsoft then, with Tom, did you get into airsoft as a player, sort of taking it up as a hobby to start with, or did you go in from it looking at the actual kit and equipment and sort of the product development sort of side of things? Or was you sort of like a player first and it sort of grew into more of an interest for you like that?
So when I joined, go back to Games Workshop. I joined Games Workshop in 2001, and Games Workshop had a team, or was developing a team called the Lenton First and Only. So if anyone's familiar with some of the Games Workshop Black Library novels, there's a series called Gaunt's Ghosts, which is the Tanith First and Only. And about a regiment of Imperial Guard crusading through the galaxy, but they're the last of their kind because their planets have been destroyed. So we took the name. Games Workshop's based in Lenton, Nottingham, so we turned into the Lenton first and only. And I joined that kind of sports and social team in 2001, and that's when I started playing effectively. I was, I'd always been into war movies and books and novels and commando comics and all that sort of stuff. And there was a group email that went around when come and shoot guns at people wearing cool kit. Hey, and it wasn't paintball, or it wasn't Nerf, or it wasn't Laser Quest. It wasn't all that kind of stuff. And what got me excited was pick up a realistic looking firearm. Not that term existed at the time, but pick up something that looks like a real gun that I've seen in the movies or read about in a book, and dress up in reasonably real looking stuff, and then go and have a good time shooting at our mates, and then have a beer afterwards. And that was kind of the sports and social thing for Games Workshop. And actually, it worked brilliantly because we went out playing with up at one point 45 other people from Games Workshop, from across the departments and areas of the business. And then those relationships actually sustained for 15, 16 years. I could still go and talk to people. So it was a really, really valuable thing. And my first game was at Phoenix Woodland in Mansfield, which is not their current site. It was another site near an old mill. And I remember the first airsoft gun I ever shot was an AK-47S with a folding stock, but a Marui one. So it was all bendy and plastic and kind of moved a lot.
Fair play, nice.
So yeah, 21 years now.
I'm a mid paddle one. I've been about 6 or 7 years, I suppose, in the airsoft scene, if you like.
Yes, I'm probably more into it than you are. I think, aren't I?
Oh, you've definitely been about. You've been around the block a few more times than I have, love. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lance.
Scars to prove it.
So, Tom, there's a bit of love for you going on in the chat. So Terry says, Tom, I enjoy watching your channel. A good and honest opinion. Andy says, hi, Tom. Welcome to the madhouse that we call the NoFo home. Nick says, Mike, I'm going to have to grow a beard. Yep.
You are.
You do need to get that on point. You
need to get rid of them cats.
Yeah, I know. Les says, never heard of this young man or his channel. I'm keen to know. So tell us more about Anvil Airsoft. Like, what sort of stuff do you do?
Okay, so let's go back to where it started. So, because that kind of helps explain where we are now. So it started off as Airsoft Action TV, and it effectively 4 or 5 years ago now, we pitched to the editor of Airsoft Action magazine, Nigel, that we wanted to move into some new media. It was probably way past the time, but we wanted to do it anyway. And this is myself and Gadge, who you'll see a lot of on the channel. And initially, it started off as effectively me and him behind a desk talking about the articles that we'd written within the magazine and just expanding on them a little bit, or talking people through the new issue. So we'd get the new issue a couple of days before, we'd film a few episodes, talk about the magazine or talk about our articles, and then show that to the world just as a bit of promotion. And we did that for a bit, and then we think, we could maybe do a bit more. So we started expanding a bit more on our articles. So if we did a group BB test and we'd write about it, instead of just sitting down at a desk and telling people, we'd actually go and just film it. And they were the first ones. We started looking at what's the standard stock range of a UK legal AAG and all that sort of stuff. But for us, it was almost at that point a MythBusters style of thing. We've heard this, or we've read this on a forum. My AAG can shoot 80 meters out of the box. Oh, can it? That's interesting.
Airsoft meters.
Airsoft meters, or light BBs get there really fast. Okay, do they? I don't know. Cool. And that sort of stuff kind of kicked off. So we started, rather than using it as a way of expanding on the article, we started using it as a way of just do this first and then write an article about the episode, which then goes into the magazine. So I've also done a lot of kind of coaching in my past. I do triathlon, skydiving. Less about that said, the better. Probably not, but it's great. But so I've jumped out of planes and taught people how to jump out of planes, and I've done triathlon and cycling and taught people how to jump. So my kind of way of presenting has always been that kind of coaching, informative explanation kind of way of doing things. So I'm not a trained media person. I'm not doing drama. A lot of the other channels I see is very much kind of media savvy people, or much prettier than me, being all controversial. And we've never done that. We've always wanted to Well, the tagline is facts, not fiction, and that's always kind of been the way. Let's talk about the facts. People can make their own mind up.
Yeah, definitely.
After that, and I always think that's a really valuable way of doing it. I mean, I'm an engineer, so it's really fundamentally I'm an engineer and a coach, and that's the way I kind of approach most of these things.
It's just sharing your findings really afterwards.
Yeah, really, yeah. And also, you got, and people need to understand that, and we've kind of done some of the group BB tests I've done with Phil Bucknell from Clearwater Airsoft, a really good guy, and a very similar kind of frame of mind. It's always been, these are the results we've got on this day out of these guns with these BBs. Your results could be completely different. Really, whatever hot rubber you're using can make a completely different result. And one of the really funny things was, we never really knew before. I think we shot the video 4 or 5 years ago, and people had never really talked about what was the range of a stock UK legal AEG. Just didn't know. And we kind of went, it's maybe about 50 meters. And then when we shot a video down at the jail with Justin, who very kindly let us on to a kind of windlass, found some space. Well, 55 meters. And then suddenly 55 meters started getting talked about all over the place. We started seeing forum posts. Oh, it's 55 meters. Oh, really? That's great. Nice if you link your source, but hey, whatever. I think it's always been a very kind of facts-based approach to doing things, problem solving. I like solving problems, and I like that kind of approach to things, really. And with a bit of Mythbusters in there, because I've always quite like that. Oh, that's an interesting myth. Are you sure?
Yeah, challenge accepted.
James C says, "How have you not heard of AATV?"
James James has been a firm fan for a few years.
And the Mythbusters of Airsoft is a very apt description of your channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nick says, "Where do you find ideas or inspiration for your videos?"
Quite often reading forums. So you'll jump on now defunct UCAC and other such things, but you'll get annoyed reading discussions of people talking absolute nonsense. You're like, well, fine, well, let's go. Or you're like, well, that's an interesting proposition, so let's go and do that. And that's a lot of the kind of the range stuff that we've done. A lot of it is just stuff we're really passionate about. We're both Gadge and me very passionate about kind of historical and retro airsoft, and also remembering where we came from. I've got stuff over here. This is from C2R, which I've got a really good relationship with, but that's £1,000 worth of kit, right? That's not easily attainable for a lot of people coming into the hobby, and we need to understand that there are much more budget-friendly options. And actually, I think some of the retro and historical stuff, particularly with British military surplus, is much more easily obtainable. It's 100 quid. You get yourself a loadout that's fantastic for most people's needs, unless you're kicking down doors at a Sterling event as continuously for 48 hours is absolutely fine, and actually it doesn't really matter anyway at that point. So we've really kind of gone for that budget conscious, sensible stuff as well, and just trying to get people spend your money wisely has always been kind of at the forefront of our minds. We're not made of money, but I think it's important for people to not waste money on stuff they don't really need to, and that's kind of been an inspiration as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I love an army surplus shop.
You can't beat it.
In there. No,
you can't beat the smell. We spoke about it on an episode, didn't we? We wonder if you could get a potpourri with it that's got a surplus store smell to it, just to put in the living room. Just canvas and oil, stuff like that.
Manky green surplus. Yeah, my partner loves it when I bring home more Manky green surplus.
I remember once I unwrapped a Dutch Army tent. I unwrapped it, been shrink wrapped up for delivery. Just opened it in the living room. I was like, oh, she was like, good God, that's a body.
Danny says it's the best smell.
It is. Yeah, there we go.
Totally agree.
So you obviously talk about the loadouts that you do and the sort of the love of historical stuff. What would you say is your favorite era that you've done, or perhaps just favorite era that you haven't done? But in terms of your loadouts and things, because I know you've done sort of like Vietnam and Falklands and stuff like that.
So the kit I personally like the best is 90s British or 90s US. So we're talking that kind of Gulf War I, Black Hawk Down, very early Gulf War and Global War on Terror. That was 2000s, but it still kind of runs in. and potentially because that's the kind of the first books that I started reading as a young adult. Bravo 20, which is complete nonsense.
Exactly the same as that.
But it's still like, it's pretty much fiction, but lodged in here somewhere. Tears of the Sun, Black Hawk Down, obviously, my favorite movie probably of all time. That kind of stuff. I really, really like that era. I like that kind of make, do, and mend stuff that the guys went through. I've done a couple of AR carbine builds, and I kind of like almost the duct tape and Jubilee clips and all that kind of stuff, rather than these days. Brilliant. You can buy a M4 variant of your choice and stick a load of Picatinny rail and strap stuff to it. Back then I've had to to build the stuff I've had to do, I've had to 3D print stuff myself to get to the point where I can build those things. I really like that. I think it's that kind of adapt and overcome attitude that they had at the time, including Bravo 20. If you look at the kit they were using, it's completely inappropriate for the environment they were in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really, they're wearing World War II desert smocks because the kit just didn't exist. It's rubbish. A lot of the guns they were using were completely shot out because they hadn't had new kit for 30 years. It's just awful, But I kind of quite like that in terms of, it doesn't matter for me as an airsofter over a weekend. It doesn't really matter, does it? Plus, I can always go down to the cafe and have a bacon roll, whereas you couldn't really do that when you're trying to do E&E in Iraq and Syria.
But it certainly wouldn't be a bacon roll, would it? But...
so that's probably closely followed by the 80s, and again, that's got that kind of same kind of vibe to it. It's not really great kit, but it kind of does the job. And it's also, 90s kit is also cheap, like really cheap. It's getting slightly more expensive now. 80s kit is actually getting quite expensive to get good kit, but 90s kit is also seriously cheap.
I remember you saying in one of your videos as well, watched recently, with regards to the sizing as well of kit, like where it's like more of your average Joe sort of size here. That's tending to get more expensive now because more people want it, whereas there's a lot smaller sizes are remaining sort of like at the cheaper end. Yeah,
if you're going for the Falklands video, we're kind of, which is the single most popular episode on the channel. A lot of that kit now, Gadge is on the larger side of normal. I'm not saying he's a big lad, but he's pretty slim compared to me. I'm much bigger, so he can still just about get kit. I can't, realistically. And if you're looking for Falklands era windproof smock, 180 quid, 200 quid, and they're generally wrecked as well. Luckily, there's a couple of companies now, What Price Glory, starting to do reproductions, which is brilliant. And because they're American sizes, brilliant. So we can get that stuff. And actually, for a weekend, it's brilliant. It's liberating. It's also much lighter. This stuff over here, and I've got plates and I've got steel plates and all sorts. I love this stuff. But if I want to run around in the woods and have a nice time, it's much nicer wearing a belt kit and a windproof and a windproof smock and some tropical trousers. It's really quite much more pleasant.
Have you got another question, Lance? There's hundreds of
my
coming
phone
in the
keeps
chat.
going really gaga tonight, so. Oh, I do apologise there.
There is some good ones.
I'll do a couple of statements. So Danny's DPM works very well.
Absolutely mental.
You can never go wrong. Terry says, Tom, no beer today?
Yes, beer. So this is a Northern Monk.
Dark brew.
Yeah, Northern Monk Lancra. I'll probably butcher this name. Northern Monk Lancra Bacra. It's Patrons Project, so it's a collab. So it's a vanilla chocolate and cinnamon stout. It's very, very, very pleasant. It is 9% though.
Yeah, that's not a session beer, is it?
No, it's a bit careful.
So, no, Tom, what I was going to say to you was, what was your first sort of event that brought you into doing like the sort of thought you think, I fancy quite doing the weekends, like the MilSim extended event sort of thing.
So going back to probably 2003, we did quite a lot with Sterling. Before then, it wasn't really, MilSim didn't exist. There wasn't really kind of a MilSim, battle sim, skirmish kind of scene. It was more of we called them weekenders. And you went for a weekender. And it was very heavily themed. So the first event I did was an Iraq invasion game at Stirling in Crickhow, which is they don't use anymore. I think it was like the Welsh. Someone will probably know in the chat, like the Welsh Guards base barracks, the ex-Welsh Guards barracks. It's if you watched any of the SAS Survival Secrets, it's the facility that they use to film all of that stuff.
Oh, right, okay, yep.
Which you might well have seen. It was that because they filmed it all there because with Shouty Man, Eddie Stone, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was an Iraq game, so we were dressed in Flecton because that was our team. team camo at the time. So we were the Iraqi Republican Guard dressed in Flecton, or whatever you want to handle that. But we looked different to everyone else who was running around in NATO kit, so that was all right. And that was, and they were full on immersive long games. Game on, play till 5, 6 in the morning, and stop. We did some games. So we also went to Senny Bridge quite early. 2005, 2006, did some really long weekends in Senny Bridge. Before night vision was a big thing, with some people running around with Gen 1 Russian nods that got burnt out as soon as you flicked an LED torch at them. That was always quite entertaining. And then moaned about it for the rest of the evening. Like, well, what are we supposed to do? Let you shoot us?
Need to see you, mate.
Really? Sorry.
Yeah, do you mind looking down so I can turn my torch on?
That was ridiculous. The amount of moaning that went on. Like, really? Well, I did one game at Stirling at Catterick, and actually this is a bit later on. And a lot of the guys had some quite posh night vision by that point. But we went to Screwfix and got a load of builders lights,
and panels,
and a small Jenny.
Nice.
So we lit up the top of the, people will know it, the multi-story tower in Catterick. And we had a Jenny in there and big builders lights running off it, and people were trying to attack us at nights with their nods on. And they just obviously we lit the square up there was some moaning. About that, but fair play. The staff went well.
It's tactics. What do you want us to do?
What do you want us to do? Can't go turn your Jenny off.
Yeah, you're not fighting fairly. Turn your generator off, please.
Yeah, we bought £3,000 nods. Yeah, well, we spent £100 in Screwfix, and we sorted.
Priceless. So you're basically from what it sounds about that you're sort of a weekender from the offset. Not so
very quickly. We kind of linked up quite quickly and got involved in that scene with those guys. I knew a lot of the old Stirling guys. And they used to come up and play at First and Only. So I helped. Wasn't me that owned the business, but I helped run and set up First and Only, the business itself in Matlock before Jamie Forrest took it over, kind of the original First and Only site. And there's a lot of people in the UK industry that remember First and Only Matlock. It was at Wirestone Woods. It was quite an influential site because we ran even for skirmishes, we ran very theme-heavy games. We didn't have any. There was no respawns.
Wow, even on a skirmish day sort of thing.
No, there's medicing out.
So it sounds like you're almost doing like a battle sim from the off then.
Yeah, without knowing. Yeah. So every skirmish had a theme. It was basically whatever war movie we'd watch that week, or book we'd read. I remember doing Operation Certain Death op Barras, which was the British Army and SAS in Sierra Leone.
That's right. Yeah, and the
I remember that
Irish Guards that got taken hostage, was it? Or
Irish, I think Rangers, yeah, but yeah,
Rangers or something got taken hostage.
And then UKSF went in. I've met a few of the guys that.
There's actually a good documentary on that. I can't remember what channel.
I met a few of the operators that were on the op as well, and they had some interesting stories about it. We checked in with a couple just before we did the video, actually, just to make sure we weren't talking absolute nonsense. So that worked out really well. But that's really. So I remember reading that book and went, right, fine, let's go and run. So if we were running hostage negotiations, even at a skirmish, what we would now call, this is like 15 years ago, that we'd now call a skirmish day. I remember asking one guy for a donkey and a pepperoni pizza.
That's what I want.
Then it went wrong. So we used to do that a lot. I mean, but you got to bear in mind, it wasn't a particularly commercial site. So a lot of the stuff you see now is, I totally understand why site owners do it, because they've got to make money. It's really, we did a live stream. I did a live stream with Dan from ATRG a while ago, quite a month or two ago. And we're talking about how to make airsoft better. But bear in mind, that's airsoft better from our perspectives. I was talking to Matt Skirmish, who runs the Midland Airsoft Fair, and he said he really enjoyed it, but no. needs to make money. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what we said in the video. These are all lovely ideas, but ultimately you need to make money. So we were probably running battle sims at a skirmish day back then as well. Heavily themed. Weren't really too worried about ammo limits at that point, but we were all running mid caps and just kind of as a marshal team and hoping that would trickle down to the punters as well. And they're generally pretty good. But it was pretty cool. They would invest. We said we're going to do Vietnam next month. The guys, I'm sure the quality of the kit wasn't what we'd expect and hope for now, but they were on board. They were great.
You've got a crowd that's willing to sort of put their hands in the pockets and chip in to make it look.
Yeah,
certainly look the part. It's good.
Didn't have to spend a lot to get most of your way there. People, it's ridiculous. It sounds people would go and buy black pajamas to do VC and a chest rig, and that was fine. Didn't cost them a lot. Yeah. And I guess that's probably where a lot of this stuff. That's actually interesting. I've only just made that connection. That's probably a lot where the kind of the loadout stuff from our perspective has come from. It's come from that kind of club community. This is what we're going to do. Here's how to do it on a really economic basis, and just make it look really good from 10 feet away, or the other side of that tree, or the other side of that fire break. If it looks good from 20 meters away, it doesn't really matter because you're immersed and you're in there. And then for me, it's always been about immersion. I don't like the word realism.
It's Vietnam. The pictures will be black and white with a bit of lens flare.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really like the word realism because I think you can't. One, I think it's a bit disrespectful for veterans anyway, and two, you can't be realistic because we're not firing bullets at each other. But I think we can get immersed into that kind of scenario and immersed into that kind of game.
Yeah, sort of trying to get as close to it as you can, sort of thing.
I love immersion, like the whole live action role play stuff and like that. If you the more the better in my mind.
It's some urban events when you've got NPCs and that to get taking part. And I mean, some of the ones they do at Octo and that you've got some of the characters there. I mean, it's brilliant. It really is good, and like you say, it only adds to it. Only adds to your experience of it and other people's experience. How you engage with them.
Yeah,
which is good. Stroking Dr. Evil's cat and stuff. It's always good fun.
Phil Robinson asks, still no chocolate covered caramel?
No, mate. Well, we did a video talking about 58 pattern webbing, and Gadge was talking about how he's had some Rolos, and I was like, no, in the British Army, you don't have Rolos, you have chocolate covered caramels.
Covered caramel.
So that's where that comes from.
No,
that's one of my favourite meals, the old school British Army ration pack with the chicken curry in the little brass tin. That's probably the best tasting curry I've had out of a rat pack. But obviously you can't get them now. It's donkey's years old.
I keep on about rat packs.
Get them somewhere, can you?
Well, yeah, you can probably get them, whether you want to eat them or not. I'm sure they'd be fine, to be honest with you. I reckon I'd eat one if I could get one.
Well, bear in mind, all that stuff was commercial off the shelf, pretty much. You can still, if you go to I'm going to call it the old person's aisle. If you go to like the
fish paste and stuff.
If you go to the old person's aisle in the supermarket, all of that stuff will be there.
Brilliant.
So you can still get it all, pretty much. You can still get like the beef stew and the baby's heads and the nasty sausages and like the chicken, the Vesta chicken curry and all that. You can still get it all.
Oh,
maybe not in the same kind of packaging.
Yeah,
but you can pretty much get it
in a roundabout kind of way. It's still there, clinging on.
Nick says, how long on average does it take to put one of your videos together?
It's really difficult because they vary so much. So they can take, they generally take a lot less time to film than they do to edit. And then, so a range trip, if we go into the range testing a gun, you've got to get everything ready, charge everything, do everything. You're talking about a day to get all your shit together and charge everything and make sure you've got everything packed and ready to go. We'll spend about 4 hours at the range, even though you'll see about 2 minutes of it. And then we'll get back, and I'll probably do a load of B-roll and all that sort of stuff. So probably 3 or 4 days, realistically. Not full time, but some stuff like the Taiwan gun videos take about a week. They're the most involved stuff I've done. But yeah, 5-6 days easy. If loadout videos, day of filming, just getting to the site, sorting yourself out, filming, getting back, about another day of editing, and probably about 1 or 2 days of being engaged trying to work out what the hell we're going to do, which bit of the loft is it stuck in, whether we need to order any stuff in, which is difficult as well. Do we really need to find those really obscure boots for the sake of spend 50 quid on a video which is going to make us 10 quid each and not worry about it. So probably anywhere between 2 to 3 and 4 days.
So what you just said there, Tom. So do you actually find yourselves when you're doing a review to review kit or like a sort of historical episode, if you like, do you find that you're actually either you or Gage are going out and actually finding kit specifically for the video if you haven't got it in your own sort of personal stores?
Yes. So yes and no. A lot of the stuff we've done already, we've already had. Though we have gone out and got stuff, and we have to be again when the budget comes in. You know, we don't make. So I am ad supported by YouTube, but realistically, I make 150 quid a month on YouTube, which doesn't cover the cost of the channel, realistically. So as soon as we buy something, and if you're looking at that stuff, like the historical stuff, you can easily blow all of that in 2 seconds on a shirt. So
I can only imagine how pricey it could be. Which again
partly helps the budget conscious stuff with the loadouts because we just can't do it. You can't afford it. Unless some of the stuff Gage has got, he's already got is, his British air landing video, which is done pretty well, which is World War II Arnhem stuff. He already had that stuff from reenactment, but there's £1,000 worth of stuff in that, plus a 400 quid DIAC early Enfield. So
wow.
if we were to buy that stuff now, we just couldn't do it. So we're very blessed. Both of us got fairly large collections of mouldy green surplus, and that kind of helps out. And
so that's Gage's sort of background, is it, from the reenactment perspective? Is British Army, World War II?
Well, he's done a lot of reenactment stuff. So he's World War II up to kind of Cold War.
Right. Okay.
So he's done kind of Commonwealth from World War II up to 1980s. He was a serving soldier. He served for a couple of years as a regular and mainly as a reserve in the 90s. So he doesn't really like touching that era because that's his. Yeah, that's
understandable.
That's his stuff. He doesn't really like talking about it. He's a very modest guy. He doesn't like talking about that sort of stuff. And actually, he never, as far as he was concerned, he never deployed. So he's quite modest about it. But also because that's when he was in, he doesn't really like doing that sort of stuff. So he leaves it up to me, really.
That's fair enough. Yeah,
but he does have. Also, he did the very, very popular, probably the most popular column that Airsoft Action magazine ever did, which was Warriors. And his hobby is really collecting militaria, so that kind of helps. That's what he likes doing, and almost speculating because stuff goes up in value. But that's his hobby. His hobby is collecting militaria, which is obviously really helped the channel because we've got some really obscure stuff.
A vast collection he's got.
Yeah, it's quite big. I mean, we're probably not going to do the West German border guard video anytime soon. Though we will, because there's only about 3 people that are actually going to be vaguely interested in it. And the kit is absolutely horrible.
Really,
it's like some weird fetish bondage World War II German grey gear with loads of buckles and snaps. It's really not very pleasant. It's like
well, sounds very Mad Max to me. That does.
It really is quite strange.
I mean, maybe that might be the most popular video you do yet. You never know.
You never know. I've just seen a picture from Afghanistan. There was a Russian diplomat, and he had a bodyguard who appears to be wearing a head to toe leather suit. You're like, really? Okay, that's probably a bit niche, but
yeah.
Never say never.
A skirmish field near you, though.
Yeah. Only fans.
Yeah. Baden Powell says, found that British Parasmock for you, Tom.
Thanks, Bade. Thanks, mate. Yeah. That's brilliant.
Empire Airsoft Limited. How comes the guy on the top left doesn't have a beard? Yep, cool. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for
that. Grey Fox says, AATV, I loved your sciencey video you did on heavy ammo versus light ammo and time to target. People still believe that anything heavy is too slow.
I think that's one of the recent things. We'd heard, that's a really good point. We'd heard all sorts of stuff about fast, light BBs get there faster, or heavy BBs are accurate, but they're really slow. And I was like, I literally don't know. The kind of engineer physicist in me tells me that conservation momentum probably comes in, but at what point? It's actually one of the videos on the channel, and lot of people have seen. But I think it's one of the I'm probably the most proud of, ironically. And we literally got BBs from 0.2 to 0.36, and I shot them at distances between 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 meters. And using the editing software, I was able to time the time between the shot and using the attack sense targets. I do want to pick up attack sense.
The archery range, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to pick up attack sense. They've been an amazing supporter of the channel. But because of those targets, we could show the time between the flash of the target and the sound of the shot, and I could just check it in the editing software. And we just found out what the reality was. The reality was that anything over 20, 30 meters, heavy BBs get there faster. 0.36, even out of a stock AEG, will get to 50 meters faster than anything else. So it depends on your engagement distance. If you're doing CQB at 10 meters, doesn't matter. Use whatever. If you're shooting through woodland at 50, 60 meters, use the heaviest BB your gun can lift. And I'm a big proponent for that, because one of the things I don't like about airsoft currently is the amount of BBs being fired. One, I think it's dangerous. I think, if someone loses their iPro, or an iPro gets hit with 8 BBs at rapid succession, you don't know what's going to happen to them.
No, so yeah, how rigorous is the testing of them? Do you know what I mean?
That's a whole subject I could go into. I've written articles about it, but I think people tend to think about best case. Oh, what if I take a round from a sniper at 50 meters? My iPro will be fine. Well, it's not really the case, is it? You could go around a corner, someone's letting rip with an HPA gun with 35 rounds a second, and you could get 12 BBs in your iPro without any trouble. Goes back to my times, kind of a design engineer for Games Workshop. So I think using heavy ammo and firing less and being more accurate is the way airsoft should go, really. But again, it's not commercial because you're firing less BBs.
Yeah,
you're not selling as much ammo, are you?
No.
So more hot problems, though.
But it was a really interesting video, and you could just I didn't know about it. I don't know if anyone had probably done anything on it before. Probably someone has done it, but on a forum. But whether it had been done in kind of video format, but you could just see that the heavy ammo was just, you're like, really, wow, that's amazing. But it was just conservation of momentum, which is heavy beat. Yeah. So if you take anything away, shoot the heaviest ammo your gun can lift efficiently without losing too much power, and you'll be happy days.
Is it the video I watched the last week? Now, forgive me if I'm probably going to cop this up now, but so that it's the heavier BB, it gets the target quicker, but you won't get the distance on it, or is that inaccurate?
No, you'll probably get more distance.
You get more distance, and it'll get there quicker with the heavier BB.
Over about 20, 30 meters, yeah.
Right. Okay.
As long as your gun can lift it.
Yeah.
By that means you just need to use a chrono and check your joules.
Yeah.
And as soon as your joules start going, you're like, fine, it can't lift it. Or you can just physically see the fact that it just can't do it. You see the range dropping off.
You'll just see it just drop off.
You'll just see it drop off. But with a really good hop, they'll be fine. I've got my Marui Mark 18 can shoot 3.6s out to 75 meters.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I run 3.6s in my DMR.
I'm shooting that out of an AEG.
Yeah.
It can't, that's harassing fire. Realistically, I would expect to hit at 50, 60. But it almost feels like cheating.
Well, it's a tactical advantage, isn't it? Ultimately, I mean, like, people wear ghillie suits for the camouflage enhancement. You obviously mod your guns to try and get the better range.
That's the only thing I think is obviously the engagement distances for airsoft rifles. I mean, Christ, you can get pistols that outshoot a rifle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I'm not saying to say realism, but for accuracy, if you like, it should be like the longer the barrel, the bigger the caliber.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
But it obviously doesn't work for us like that. Do you know what I mean?
Anything over about 6 inches, it doesn't really matter. There you go. But that's
the quote from tonight's episode.
Yeah, just that picture like that.
Anything over 6 inches, and it doesn't really matter. No, but yeah, no, it's a bit of a weird one. And again, that's why you see all these weird, which I hate, absolutely detest, all these weird AAP01 carbine pistol horrible thing builds. I want the immersion. I want to use a rifle that I've seen in the movies, or a real army uses. I'm not interested in space guns and that kind of stuff. We're getting strained dangerously into paintball there. But I also get that the sport has moved on. and that's where we are. And the influences, on a complete tangent, the influences now are no longer realistically movies and books. They are computer games and that kind of stuff. You know, it's bizarrely COD in real life.
That's it. Essentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's space for other stuff. But
healthier Call of Duty.
probably just as much caffeine drinks. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's that element of burning it off. That's the good thing about it.
But I'm way too old and way too slow for that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Silly Giddy says, has the max range of stock Aegs changed over the years?
Probably not. Only in terms of power. So Marui's in 2001, most guns in 2001 were doing about 270, 280 FPS. So about 0.8 joules. And they were doing about 45, 50 meters. Actually, it was quite civilized because it didn't really hurt very much. And then all the kind of China clones came in. So the first kind of classic armies and JGs. And then the power was doing 400. And then we needed to sort that out pretty quick because that was getting a bit silly. So we kind of the 350 rules came in. But realistically, no. The most hop units that most stock guns come with are pretty crap. Mainly for cost reasons. And they tend to do 50, 55 meters. Because the hot rubbers just aren't efficient. The other issue you get in the UK is we're quite a small market, so the hot rubber, because most of our stuff is lower power than Asia, the hot rubbers are too hard, and our temperature's too cold, and the hot rubbers don't really perform very well. So we just don't get very good range out of our stock guns. You can change a hot rubber and a couple of elements in a gun and get 10, 20 meters out of them, put heavier ammo in. But we're a small market. It's just not worth people changing too much.
So Tom, going back to obviously when you first sort of like broke into to doing airsoft, you know, about 2001, 2002ish from going to the Games Workshop team, did you sort of notice a change in the airsoft scene? Like, did it suddenly? Obviously, it was quite small back then. Was there just a sudden explosion of other companies thinking, "Christ, we need to get in on this," or has it been sort of like a gradual build up over the years that you've seen new companies coming in, or was it just sort of a sudden like, "Wow, you know, this is airsoft now"?
It was very kind of grey. It wasn't official. Airsoft didn't really exist. So prior to the VCRA in 2000's Violent Crimes Reduction Act, which was like a Labour's flagship thing about knife crime, and Airsoft got lumped into it. Airsoft didn't exist as an official entity at all. It was just some weird thing that people did, and it was almost a kind of a club network. You had to almost be invited. You had to know someone who said, "Oh, this is a cool thing happening. Do you want to come along?" And bear in mind, this is pre-Facebook and pre-YouTube. So that stuff didn't exist.
So it literally essentially was word of mouth sort of thing.
Yeah, it's pre-social media. There were bulletin boards, some forums, but unless you went looking because you'd heard about it, you wouldn't know. So realistically, two things happened. This is the VCRA, which is when all the legislation happened, and we kind of got the definitions of replica imitation firearms. Because airsoft itself wouldn't have been banned, but the things we use to play airsoft with would have been banned. They would not exist. They would have been fluorescent yellow and transparent plastic, or look like Nerf guns. And for most of us at the time, I think at the moment, I'm not sure that would actually have an effect. At the time, most of us wouldn't have been interested because we wanted that immersion. So that's the first thing that happened. But because there was almost an official legislation and it got recognised and it was a thing and it was almost talked about in the news as well, because we all wrote loads of articles and campaigned with MPs, it became a thing. And probably the main thing that happened was YouTube and Facebook. So 2006, 2007, again, people started making videos of people shooting each other with guns. And people got excited about it. And I think that's really when it exploded. To a certain extent. It's still not massive. When we're in a hobby, we tend to think it's really important and it's really big. It's not. Airsoft's really quite small. But it really was word of mouth. And it was almost, you had to be invited into that kind of club, even though there were still commercial operators. But there was a fraction, a tenth, a 20th of the amount of sites that there are now.
Blimey.
Back in those days, absolutely tiny. And he tended to not knew everyone, but
and it's interesting you say there when you say like if you didn't know about it and you didn't know someone who'd done it, you wouldn't really essentially hear about it from anyone else, sort of thing. And that sort of makes a lot of sense because like I've only started doing airsoft sort of like 6-7 years ago, But I mean, if only I'd found this when I was like in my very early 20s or late teens. But it makes sense now, as obviously I didn't know anyone sort of in my inner circle that sort of took part in airsoft, so I wouldn't have heard about it. But good God, if I'd have found out about it then, geez, I dread to think of what I have now.
I remember that email with the link coming from, actually, it was probably Gadge at the time, because he was at Games Workshop with me. And I was like, what? You get to do what? You get to wear these things and shoot each other with these things, and then you get to go for a beer afterwards. That sounds like amazing, you know. That sounds like the best thing ever. Is it better now? It's more popular, probably. We've got a lot more kit and
Yeah, not wrong.
better guns and everything else. You know, I can go into grumpy old man and blah, that was better back then. No, it probably wasn't. Let's be quite honest. But I think almost it becoming an official legal entity and social media is what happened. And then people want to make money, don't they? So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bloody YouTubers says illegally. Yeah.
Made me chuckle. So, talking of YouTube and the like, Tom. Obviously, you know you're now a YouTube celebrity. I'm not gonna. Do you find that affects like when you go out and play, or do you find it's not really much different? Like, people can start hammering you with questions when you're out and about.
Generally, I think people. What's the word? It doesn't really affect me. I do get recognised, which is really odd. It's generally not a lot, but people are, I like, yeah. And we tend to have some quite cool kit because we're different to everyone else, mainly because it's old, manky green surplus. So I think we get more questions about the stuff that we're wearing because it's different to all the sea of MTP and plate carriers and shitty G&G guns than most people have. So that's a cool shirt. What's that? It's like some ancient 90s tropical DPM shirt. It's amazing, you know. Or I've got some, to most people's eyes, completely abhorrent carry handle looking AR. Tends to be more kind of that stuff than actually, Anvil, how you doing? I'm quite conscious the way I play. I take everything. Any sniff of anything coming anywhere near me. Even I'm convinced it's a ricochet, you know.
Yeah.
Just take everything. It's just not worth it. So that's probably the biggest difference. Is, you know, just not that I wasn't scrupulous before, but I'm absolutely scrupulous about the way I play, certainly in terms of hit taking, and also, you know, and not overshooting and giving people the absolute benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You know, even if I'm screaming, going, I'm pretty sure I've hit that guy. He's 50 meters away. I'm also got to remember I've done a lot of testing, and I know I've missed a lot of shots at 50 meters on a flat range, and he's like halfway hidden behind that tree. I probably haven't hit him.
Yeah.
You know,
I've got much better at that. I think I managed to hold my tongue quite well at the last event I went to, and there was a little bit of that going on. I was just like,
you didn't to me. You're fucking ranting and raving.
Oh no,
to me.
yeah. You just said a
that's
massive
different, but
back for the whole weekend.
and I might go in. I might go back and say, all right, you know, just be aware that guy is a bit maybe. I guess one difference is site owners will talk to me. How you doing? How's the game going? All that sort of stuff.
Do you ever joked and got like a little black book out and just gone?
No, but I have to.
Oh, fuck.
I've been at sites and I've said, you know, I think there's too much overshooting going on, or it's getting a bit silly, and there's words have been had, or it's gone on to semi-auto for a game just to calm people down because there's a bit of, and I'm not saying just a bit of influence. You're like, what's going on? You're like, I'm not entirely sure this is going very well, guys. Let's not to be big-headed, but you know, I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've noticed is my opinion is sought by the people running the site, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, but fair enough. You know, you've been doing it for such a long time. You know,
I've run sites, I've run games, I've run stuff. I've marshaled, I've been a head marshal. But generally, I think just giving people the benefit of the doubt I see a lot of people go, oh, you see it all the time, don't you? Oh, I'm hitting him. No, mate, you're 50 meters away. You're not hitting shit. Not, not through that bush. It's not a real gun, mate.
That's it. Yeah, them Kevlar bushes again.
And even so, just calm down and just go 20 meters that way and play somewhere else. It's a big site. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that guy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You said before the show that you sort of feel a sense of responsibility as well, with the way that you portray your channel and sort of the things that you talk about on there.
Yeah. So I think one of the most profound things that ever happened to me, I'd reviewed what was it? Well, a thermal sight. I forget the name now, but amazing bit of kit. But it's $3,000. And this thing can see through bushes. It's quite amazing. You can see through doors with it if the door's thin enough. It's really quite incredible bit of kit. It was helmet mounted. Got it from Scott Country. And I was at an event. I was at a kind of industry day at a site doing a kind of a themed day. I was talking to a guy sitting on top of a watchtower, and he was like, "Oh, I bought that because of your review. I really like it." And I was like, "Oh my god, okay." He spent £3,500 because I said it was a good bit of kit.
Well, at least he was grateful for it, and he wasn't just sitting there like winding his right hook up.
I know. I was 30
feet. Wait to meet you.
I was 30 feet off the deck, so I'd have been in real trouble, wouldn't I? And I think I'd always try to present. I try to present products and let people make their own opinion up. So here's are the facts. This is how it operates. This is what it does. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's up to you. And often, and this almost comes from being a designer, when you design things for a living, you very, very rarely design for yourself. You always generally design stuff for a target market. And I kind of feel that way about reviewing. You very rarely review stuff for yourself. You need to bear in mind the target market or other people that review it, and just present what it does, because it's a big responsibility. I can review a gun, people buy it. And that's £400 or £500 easy. Or a bloody thermal sight's £3,500. Night vision, £5,000 night vision, because I've said it's decent. And I think that's a big responsibility. And if you don't take that responsibility serious, then you've got no place on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, mate. Absolutely.
I think I take that extremely seriously. I don't, there's been stuff. I generally don't slag off stuff, but also it doesn't get seen. So there's been a fair bit of stuff I've had and used, and I've sent it back with feedback. Rather than me going, this is terrible. And if it's dangerous, I would probably say something about it. But it's not happened a lot, but there's been a few things that have gone back. I've gone, like, this is just not good enough. And you got if you do slag something off, let's be honest, right? You're never going to get anything to review ever again, unless you buy it with your own money. And I'm not in a position to be able to do that financially, so I will provide full feedback to a manufacturer or shop about if something's not good enough. But yeah, I do feel big weight of responsibility with regard to stuff that I review, and it's why I take longer than most people to review stuff as well. I don't do unboxings.
No.
It's just, yeah, here we go. It's a box, great. And then read the specs off. What you're learning? You could have gone on a website.
We know Tom can read. Yes.
Like, really.
And he's a dab hand at opening boxes. But
I've still got to finish my TM MP5 A5 review, but I don't have enough magazines because there's a shortage. I haven't actually been able to play with it properly yet, so I don't know. I've had it 6 months.
Yeah. Same with us, though, Mike. We've always said the same thing. Like some of our own kit that we do, that we mention on our shows that we do. We'll only ever mention kit that we've used. And was it no reviews till it's been used and abused? Basically, there's been sort of like our mantra for our kit, and it's stuff that we've had for 2, 3, 4 years. We've had it out at events. I'm not saying it's been used day in, day out, but it's every time I've gone to an airsoft event of overnighters or whatnot, that's always come along with me. It's always served its purpose quite well. And it's done what it says on the tin. So, I'll happily share that, because I say, well, like this cup, for example, you know what I mean? This is my go-to mug now, like every day of the week. I've got this with me in my bag with a coffee in. And it's, and it fits in an ammo pouch as well, which is even better. Stuff like that.
My favorite bits of kit is a thermal flask for my ammo pouches.
It's got to be done. I like it for the trigger action and the fact that it won't leak. It will not leak. And it's got a trigger action. You haven't got to unscrew it or anything like that. It's just there, ready to go.
There will be a full review written up on the website later this week.
There will be.
He's already sent it to me. I've just got to get it uploaded.
He's just got to put it together and upload it.
Silligity asks, what's the wrongest loadout that someone has brought to a theme event?
I've never seen anything particularly terrible. I get a little bit annoyed at just sometimes when it's a 90s game and they've turned up in MTP or clearly 2000s kit. So it's really not that hard to go to an armor surplus store. But I guess if you don't know, I can read contract dates because I'm a nerd. So I can read the contract number on most British kit and tell you what year it came from. So I guess that's probably our fault for not putting an episode up on that. I've never seen anything particularly bad at a themed game. Sometimes just a bit of a lack of effort, which is a bit of a shame. And the organisers put loads of work in. Sometimes we're like, oh, come on, guys. But maybe the loadout guide should be better. It's partly why we did the loadout series.
I remember once it wasn't a theme game, but I remember it was just a normal skirmish Sunday at Apocalypse in Sittingbourne, and sort of quite someone who takes part in weekend events going to a skirmish day. You sort of forget that it's a skirmish day, so you're still on that sort of weekend mindset, sort of thing, trying to be tactical and advancing and this, that, and the other. Sort of laid up in this bush, looking at the village at APOC, nice and quiet, and all of a sudden, Deadpool just went fucking tearing past me, just like smashed the bush that I was hiding behind out the way, and I'm just like, that's Deadpool. Deadpool's going to sort it all out for us. Just not worry about it.
Only go for a coffee, right?
He's just going running in dual wielding. He's like, ah, motherfucker! I was like, oh, there goes Deadpool.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know. It'd be nice for people to pay a bit more attention to. But again,
but it's like it was each to their own. It's a skirmish day. It's like
skirmish day.
You can have Darth Vader versus whoever. It's just one of them. A Crusader knight come running around the corner with a rubber sword flipping around.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, probably sex toys used at skirmishes as close combat weapons, which I'm not cool with. It's probably illegal for a start.
Yeah,
just a little bit of decorum.
Yeah,
it's not just because you're some massive neckbeard virgin. It's not funny to charge me down with a 10-inch black rubber cock, mate.
Yeah, it's quite scary. I'd have thought.
It's quite that thing could do some damage, man. Talk about gentle
I've
tap
seen
on
that and the fist one as well. I've seen that one been stuck on the end of a rifle. Just
something seriously wrong in your life if you think that's entertaining.
So you're going to sell yours, Mike? Now.
I was. So there was a little bit of me that's just thinking.
Not saying a word.
I can see that, but I would quite like to see someone with like a fist on, like a fist bayonet. But I think you're right. I wouldn't want to see that at like certain events. Like I don't. Maybe the occasional skirmish. It might be amusing for like 2 minutes, but I mean, I've seen rubber chickens and that used.
What was the ones that Topsy had that actually made the noise? So you could squeeze this chicken,
wasn't it?
Squeeze the chicken and throw it. And as soon as you let go of it, it just it's horrendous noise it made, but hilarious.
Kieran says, question, you've stated that you are a fellow collector of Rhodesian kit. Is there any plans to make a video about it? Also, what happened to Webbing Walk?
I've got a bit of Rhodesian kit. Video-wise, probably not, because it's expensive. Again, I could do a Rhodesian kit. I'd have to spend about 300 quid and I'd make about 20 quid. So unless I was doing a game or a game series that was set in Rhodesia, so, Bush Wars, I probably wouldn't go down that line. Webbing Walk is interesting. People really liked our Webbing Walk. The reason we did Webbing Walk was because of lockdown. So one, I set up a business. So I started a sole trader business. And then we were like, how can I actually see my friends? So Webbing Walk was how I could see my friends in lockdown. And we both had 58 webbing, and we thought we'd just go for a wander around the local nature reserve. We haven't seen each other for like 2 months for the obvious reasons. We quite enjoyed it. People seem to really like the video. I'd like to do another one, but there's always kind of something else which gets in the way. I'd like to do like a series of them. So yes, we will get around to it. It's kind of not a massive priority at the moment, but people seem to like them. So it's definitely there. But it also involves Gadge buying things. So again, it's one of those. Well, it's not as much Gadge, but it's again, it's Gadge
is that Gadge being forced to buy things for both of you, or if you just label Gadge as the purchaser of things?
No, I mean, I've got some the next one we want to do is 95 PLCE webbing. I've got a set. Gadge doesn't have a set of PLC. He's PLC that he's happy with putting on camera, which is part of the point. So if he would then have to go and spend 30, 40, 50 quid on PLC webbing to do a video, which is going to make no money because YouTube even at 10,000 subs doesn't make any money. So it's just not economic. We will get around to it at some point. But we get, it brings up a point. We get asked all the time to do stuff, and they're like, "Well, who's going to pay for that? Can you review this gun? Yeah, fine, buy me one.
Yes, send it my way. I'll be happy to.
And I'll have it for 5 months, and then fine, you can have it back afterwards when it's trash and I've taken it apart." But which is part of my deal with going back. Part of my deal with Tyrone Gun when I started working with them was but you need to give me the gun. That's part of the deal, and I'm going to shoot the shit out of it, and I'm going to take it apart. So it's unusable as a commercial item afterwards. And I've had a couple of shops go, can you review a gun for us? Yeah, fine, but you can give it to me because I'm going to shoot the shit out of it for 2 months, and then I'm going to take it apart. And they're like, "Oh, can't you just put it back in the box and give it back to us?" No, because
that's a nice review, then, mate, isn't it? That's a totally honest.
Because what we talked about earlier, that's just not good enough. Because that gun's going to go straight back on the shelf, and you're going to sell it to people. Just not cool.
Mr. Meat, he's changed his name. Mr. Meat. It sounds weird, Wayne. Change it back to fresh. Would like to say a big thanks as your Falklands vid really helped him out with his para build.
We've got another one coming from that era. And when we get some weather, I'm like seriously backed up with stuff at the moment. I've not put a video out for like the last 2 weeks because we've got a backlog of stuff. Loadout vids and range vids. I've got 4 guns that need to go to the range. I've got loadout vids coming out my arse at the moment, but we can't get anywhere. The weather is awful and has been for 2 months.
It's rubbish.
It's been rubbish. absolutely shocking. So trying to coordinate a time when me and Gadge can get together when he's not working and then get to an interesting location to shoot a video. We used to do them in the garden, but they look way better when we go and shoot somewhere else. So we're like, if we're forced to, and again, the loadout vids came about because of lockdown. We're like, what can we do? Well, we can go outside in the garden and we can talk about these clothes that we've got. Happily, they proved to be really popular. But so the next Falklands one, it's not necessarily Falklands. It's more kind of like 1980s recce SF. So I've got some kind of I've modified my 58 webbing and I've got a replica chest rig and some other kind of cool kit. So we can do a kind of recce SF 80s loadout.
Nice.
Because the Falklands one was very much straight up leg infantry, and this one a bit more, not necessarily SAS or SBS, but just a bit more old sweat, cool kind of kit.
Yeah, sounds good. I like the sound of that. So that being said, then, Tom, what would be your ideal event era loadout sort of kit?
Right. So my favourite ever event, which has sadly been stopped because of low attendance, was Gunman's 1990s series, set in a fictional country of Sahud, a Middle Eastern country, being invaded, helped out, supported by a NATO task force. One we talked about it earlier. I love that era. But I used to crew it for Josh at Gunman.
Right.
So I ended up. If you've never crewed a game, do so. It's hilarious. You get to really annoy people, but you end up doing 17 different roles throughout the day, so it's incredibly varied. And your role, I think I must enjoy crewing more now than I do playing to a certain extent. Whether that's just sitting in a tent at a modern MilSim on the radios, or playing some annoying date salesman. Or whatever. I really enjoy that. So I think, but I would So in an ideal world, I would love to see that come back, but I don't think it will. I think that time has passed, but that would be great. But that's like, again, Black Hawk Down, Tears of the Sun, Generation Kill. That kind of era would be great for me. I like the idea. I haven't been to an Octo 8 game. I think I really would like to. Maybe I need to talk to Baz and get on the crew list, or just come and play.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
I quite rarely pull the trigger these days. It's really not doesn't. I've been playing 21 years. Shooting people kind of doesn't really interest me that much. I kind of just like what I really like doing is being outside with cool people.
Yeah, fair play, mate.
And camping in a forest and just sitting in a hammock and having a nice time and almost facilitating other people's enjoyment. Sounds a bit weird, but there you go.
We've said this a lot before that I mean, we're trying to, subsequent to the last few episodes, we're trying to sort of steer clear of the phrase MilSim. So these live events or the weekends, as we used to do, we've said this before, that the enjoyment from it is almost 80% just being out with your mates in the woods, eating MREs and just camping in really, really old battered tents. It's 20%.
It's a massively huge. The shooting of an airsoft rifle when I go to a weekend event or an overnighter, as Tom's aptly named it. It's a very small part of it for me, to be fair. Yeah. And it's quite ironic for the amount of money you put into these rifles. For the little, I get a lot more from a lot of other things at a weekend event than I do just like shooting someone in the chest or in the back of the head or whatever it may be from an airsoft rifle with a pistol. There's so many other things that come into it. Like the harbour area, setting up, cooking up of a night time and getting ready for your night ops and going out doing bits and bobs like that. And like you said, Mike, just being with your pals for the weekend is brilliant.
I really like being outside. So I've always done outside sports. I do a lot of road cycling now. I have done for years. Jumped out of planes. I've camped. I've walked. I've hiked. I've done all sorts of outdoor stuff all my life. And what I really like, ultimately, one of the reasons I've always loved airsoft is just what you've said: is being outside and spending time with my mates. And it's a way of facilitating that. So I think. Definitely. Going, rolling back to your original question, what event I want to spend quality time with my friends outdoors. I quite like, urban events are quite interesting in that they have a different dynamic, but ultimately I just like being in a wood. There's something about it for me an event in a wood would be great. And I've played on MOD sites and I've played at Sparta and I've played at other places, and I just prefer being. Actually, my skill set is. I've not done a massive amount of CQB. My skill set is much better in a wood anyway.
Yeah, I'm not set up for urban. I definitely prefer the woods. I must admit, with a little scattering of buildings.
Yes, yeah. How about
I could a little garnish of building in the main wooded area. Yes, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and I go.
No, let's carry on. So I used to go and play at Combat Ready in Derby, which is now sadly shut, which is like a 5-story office building. And that was kind of almost session airsoft. It was like 3 hours in tents, done on a weekday night. Brilliant. And I really enjoyed that. You could go full bore mental for 3 hours, come home covered in welts to the point where you couldn't sleep because the sheets were sticking to your bullet wounds. And then be done. And I quite like. So I kind of like the contrast between that kind of short, sharp arena kind of style games.
Yeah, just a quick blowout.
And then actually, let's go and camp in the woods and eat horrendous MREs and not be able to poo for like 2 days. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's my thing. So get there Friday morning. Arrive Friday morning. Biscuits brown. Yeah, may have a little top up of biscuits brown mid-weekend, and then
I quite like biscuits brown.
I like the taste of it. Not too bad at all. It's just I don't know what it is though, because it will bind you up, and you're golden then. But as soon as you put one foot over the threshold when you get home, it's like, oh.
Or if you have some biscuits fruit.
Biscuits brown's worn off quick.
Sort of fructose in biscuit fruit. Or you get about an hour out the motorway, and you're like, pull over, next services.
Stop. Yeah, just in the middle lane. I don't care where you stop.
That was quite an interesting question you brought up, Mike. So do you want to?
Yeah. Well, I've got another one as well.
This one's interesting.
There's so many questions coming in.
So I'm not going to talk about uniforms, but I'm going to talk about plate carriers. Because one here. C2R, friends of the channel, great guys. I think most people now, I need to go that way. Yeah. Most people now seem to start with a plate carrier. And I don't get it. So and I guess probably because it's on, again, COD, whatever, or people see other people wearing one. I've got to get a plate carrier. Right. Plate carriers are really terrible for load carrying. And if you're in the woods, they're almost virtually completely pointless. And if you're in the and if you're at an event which doesn't have armor rules, it's even more completely pointless. You'd be much better off with a lightweight chest rig or or belt kit or some £30 worth of army surplus webbing from your local Manky Green surplus army surplus store. So I think to that extent, yeah, I think uniforms have got fashionable. I think people need to use what works for them, but it's difficult to learn what works for you when you're surrounded by fashion choices. So people go for that. I'd recommend anyone just buy a 15 quid army surplus chest rig and just use that until you know what you actually want to use. And then the other thing that annoys me is plate carriers without plates in them. But that's one of those things. Which you see in the movies all the time. What was I watching the other day? I was watching Space Force on Netflix, and the guards in Space Force didn't have plates in their 511 plate carriers, and that really irritated me. There you go.
Well, just out of interest, what did you think of the latest series of Space Force? I didn't think it was as good as the first one.
Wasn't as good as the first one. I still enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as the first one. I think they'd used a lot of the good jokes up already or something. But
yeah, I did like the moon camo. I thought that was quite good. I've been looking at sorting it. I'm trying to source some bricolage. I'm working on it. But genuinely, I've got chats out with various people about making a bricolage U-back.
Yeah, I think this kind of fast helmet, plate carrier, fight light, shooter's belt thing. People need to bear in mind that this is direct action kit. It's meant for bailing out of helicopters or vehicles into a building and the shooting being over in 7 minutes. That's like the limit of exploitation on this kit. It's not meant for bimbling around in the woods all day.
No,
just don't worry about it. I mean, it looks cool, and if you want to look cool, that's absolutely fine. Don't get me wrong. I would never object to anybody spending money on stuff they like. That's cool. It's a hobby. Do what you want.
I think the important thing though is that don't go out and buy like a Warrior DCS. It's like, oh well, that's what everyone uses. So
just don't buy Warrior.
Try cheaper stuff first.
No, just don't buy Warrior. They rip other people's designs off and then call it their own anyway. So just if you're going to buy a plate carrier, either buy cheap or buy real. Buy Cry or Ferro or someone. Anyway, that's just me being snooty. But
I sit there with my 2 Warrior DCSs behind me.
No, my first loco was the old PLC DPM PLC webbing set. Love it. Still got it now.
I love webbing.
I'm getting it ready for the SEO MilSim next month, 17th, 18th next month, March. So yeah, we're rocking DPM for webbing for that.
There are some use cases for plate carriers. They can carry quite a lot of load for heavy rig. If you're running radios and lots of gas mags and all sorts of stuff, they can be quite useful. I just think it for a lot of people in a lot of environments, there's definitely use cases for them. I'll run that C2R when I'm loaded up, but I just think people just maybe not as a first purchase, just lightweight chest rig and just see where your games go.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
But I think that's more fashion than anything else. Plus MTP.
MC bin Warrior kit, fuck it right off.
Don't get wrong. It's well made. It's absolutely fine. It used to be a lot cheaper. So the DCS used to be quite a reasonable price, and you got quite a lot of kit for the money. You got it was well built, quality kit. But they seem to be now at prices that they're competing with people like Cry and Ferro, and you're like, oh no. So maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago they were fine. Fine. They copied other people's designs, but at least they were priced sensibly. And now it's got just silly money. You're like, really?
I've not looked at Warrior for. I mean, my DCs have got second hand in here for pal of mine who'd upgraded some of his kit, who's serving, so he demobbed. Well, he's not demobbed, but he was getting rid of some kit, so I got that for a reasonable price. But I've not. Prior to that, I wouldn't have sort of considered. I'm quite a cheapskate when it comes to kit, really, and there's a lot of. I'll quite happily get something second hand. I really couldn't give a toss if it's been second or third hand, whatever, as long as it works and it's not completely trashed. I'll soon make good use of it. So yeah, I've not really compared prices like you have, Tom. I mean, obviously you've got a vast experience on the markets and how they've changed and the kit that's come out and this compared to myself. So I've not really had that experience of seeing where prices have changed like over the past sort of like 4 or 5 years, like you've just said about the Warrior stuff. I wouldn't have any comparison to go on.
It's it's well-made stuff. It's not going to let you down.
Mm.
And when it was, when a DCS was 120 quid, that's pretty damn good value. It's very hard to argue. It's very hard to argue at that point. Now some of their products are a lot more. You can buy American-made real stuff, not stuff made in China, for a comparable price. Well, okay, depending on your politics, that kind of makes sense to me as well. And James just made a point. James said, looking at a Warrior webbing set, he might as well buy genuine JJs, nearly the same money. Yeah, JJs made in the UK, absolutely bomb-proof. Absolutely,
yeah, JJ's broken. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing company. They make stuff for UKSF and Speed in the Jungle. Fantastic stuff. And then you can buy stuff, knockoff designs made in China. Anyway, I can go off on a rant, which I won't go into. But I just think spend the money on people that designed the stuff in the first place. I've had this done when I was a designer at Games Workshop. We had knockoff stuff made, and it was really irritating.
I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, I think I've got Dragon Supplies airborne kit, belt kit.
Nice.
Around it somewhere. That's a lovely. But obviously, it is what it is. You can't. There's no you can't change it. You know what I mean? It's not as modular as like a Molly belt kit where you can add additional commanders pouches. Ditch one of the double ammo pouches and add a commander's one to the right side or something. It is what that is because it's fully stitched into the belt. That's it. There's no changing. Get used to it. And work with it, which is quite cool. I think. Less moving parts.
In terms of Sonic's Pro's usable night vision, Tom. It depends on what you're trying to do. So if you want to run around with the Gen 2, Gen 3 analog night vision guys, no, it's not going to work. So Sonic's Pro is for people who don't know, it's a digital night vision camera.
I was to say this is a digital one that's
it's
recently...
digital night vision camera that you can press into service as a nod, helmet mounted. The bonus is they are significantly cheaper, but you get what you pay for. So if you go to your local site's night game and they run until 11 in the evening and you want to own your mates, yeah, brilliant. It's kind of in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king sort of stuff. You'll murder people. If you want to go to, I'm going to use Sterling just because it's Sterling. If you want to go to Sterling and think you're going to compete with guys with £7,000 Gen 3 plus night vision, it's not going to happen. It needs an additional light vision. In anything remotely dark, it needs an IR source. And if you're using an IR source with night vision, everyone else with night vision can see that IR source just like you'd be shining a torch. So you'll be stuffed. It works quite well in kind of a static position. So if you're on stag or you're watching or you're on guard, it works quite nicely for that. It's significantly cheaper. I think if you want to dabble with that digital night vision stuff, I probably wouldn't go for the Pro. I'd probably get the Sport, which is a really cheap one, about £400-500 quid, and have a go with that and see if you like it before you invest in. The problem is the jump between the Psionic Sport at £400-500 quid and something actually really usable that you can properly run around and fight with is enormous.
It's another grand at least, isn't it? Really?
Well, more than that. These days, you can't really. You used to get a lot of Russian tubes. So Flair and other people used to use a lot of Russian tubes. So you could get a Gen 2 Plus for 1,500, £2,000. You just can't do it anymore. So you're looking at £4,000 for good Gen 2, £6,000 for Gen 3 equivalent. It's very hard to get Gen 3 in this country. Most Gen 3 in this country is nicked off the MOD, and they don't really like it very much for understandable reasons.
Yeah, fair one.
You might get a phone call from police, MOD police. So I think if you want to dabble in night vision, have a bit of a laugh, have a good giggle at your local skirmish site, or something like Octo, which isn't particularly serious. Do they play into the night?
No,
I think they're looking at potentially doing some night stuff, possibly.
But
some might be hearsay.
Yeah, it just gets a bit difficult.
I mean, the thing, before I've only got a Gen 1 Pulsar night vision purely for which I still haven't yet to use in a bloody game yet because I'm lucky enough I've got my thermal, so I'll just rely on that. But I mean, I did 5 years without having thermal or night vision. Quite happily took part in events.
I think you've got a good point. I think for the same money as a Psionics Pro, I think you'd be better off with thermal.
I mean, if I had to choose one, it would be thermal.
Yeah,
because it's just It is what it is. Do you know what I mean?
So, certainly, if you're static, thermal.
Gen 3, you'd have to set a Gen 3s on. If you're laying up somewhere and you're in cover, you know, you're not going to get seen.
They won't see you. If you're on a
thermal.
So I think to Regifile, I think for the same money, get a thermal.
I would. I'd be inclined to go down that road.
There's stuff like the Wraith, which is a site which I want to test from Scott Country, which I'm really interested in. Again, it's still not going to be great, but it's a weapon site, but it also records. So for my purposes, brilliant. So it's like a one-to-weight weapon site with night vision, and it records at 4K. Well, for me, that's like
fucking smart. That is nice.
That's absolutely brilliant. So that for me, that'd be great. I think the Sonics Pro money, get thermal or get the Sport, and just accept that it's very, very limited.
Oh, is that the scope that does the live? Will do a feed to a. Like you can do a direct feed to a laptop or something like that.
Probably does as well, yeah. Yeah, so there's loads of
that for immersion for a game. That would be quality, like eyes on. You know what I mean? You know, this is actually live on the ground. If you was given a briefing, you had like a recce team laid up with eyes on a target, and you've got like an assault team waiting back at FOB, actually briefing and saying we're going to go cut live now and just actually get eyes on. That'd be quality, like another bit of immersion to it. That would be cool.
So I've run my Sonics at MilSims and I've been okay. But it's not brilliant. And I think where Sonics falls down is a lot of the marketing the company have put out is really overblown. In some circumstances, it kind of in twilight, they're amazing because there's enough light that the sensor works and you can see everything in color. It's just fantastic. As soon as it gets dark, no. So that's why I kind of say if you're kind of like your local sites night games, they'll be brilliant. Because it's not really dark. But as soon as it gets dark, no. It cannot compete with Gen 2, Gen 3.
No.
Terry says you did a good review on the Sonics.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to be just super honest about it. And let people make let their own people make their own minds up. Again, because it's one of those things.
Rage said he was planning on going thermal first anyway. Andy says the Sonics gave me a massive headache after about 10 minutes. Couldn't use it for long at all.
You just have
the
to
lag
get used
due to the digital refresh rate was a killer for me.
You can turn the lag, you can turn the refresh rate right down, but I think with any device you have to get used to it. I spent a lot of time walking around the house in the dark making dinner and stuff like that. just
extreme testing.
Just
a stir fry.
Just get the time behind it. Just get used to using it. Make a cup of tea and all that sort of stuff. Just get used to the depth perception. I'm really lucky. I can run a thermal on one eye and a night vision on one, and it just works.
See, that's what I do. I've got the thermal scope on the riff, and then obviously I've got the left hand just purely for navigation.
But I can do both, and then my brain works. But then I can also put on VR goggles and not feel motion sick. So I guess I'm quite lucky. Just where my brain's wired.
I can eat a carrot and click a torch. So
there we go.
Yeah,
you can do great with white light. I'll just let your eyes adjust.
Yeah.
Well, like we said, 5 years I played without NVs or thermal. You know what I mean? You just get as soon as that dark time comes down, you a bit of light discipline. Not like someone comes and go, "You're up, mate." Boo.
We did that. We did that latest descent. We took a load of guys off and just said, "Just go and sit there quietly for 20 minutes, and you'll see an awful lot more than you thought you ever could."
Yeah, 100%.
See, if you go right under the trees, yeah, fine, but just don't go under the trees, or don't go into the building.
And don't think that every shadow is someone chasing after you when you're walking.
Do mate.
Just come running back screaming, "They're after me."
Dan says, question for Tom. You did some ration pack tests. Which was the best and worst one?
So worst, easy. That was Italian. And they got really offended.
Oh, dear.
So I got it's brilliant. I love it. There's loads of ranty Italians on that ration video, going about how obviously the British have no cuisine and we have no taste and we're all awful and we don't understand Italian cuisine and it's all just shit. And clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. It's brilliant. Love it. There's a wood-fired pizza oven out there.
Well, they got that precious over a ration pack.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. I love the passion. Totally get it. But so there's a wood-fired pizza oven in the garage. I drink espresso out of a quality machine all the time. We make pasta from scratch from flour. Nice. We get Italian food. This was just shit. It's like
I get Italian food.
It's just like going into an Italian. It's like going into a Happy Shopper and getting Happy Shopper ravioli. like 6p tin of ravioli. It was just awful. It was just terrible quality. But of course, me being British, I can't possibly pass comment on Italian food.
No,
it was awful. It was like some ration from the 1970s. It was just absolutely appalling. You're like, really, your fighting troops have to go and use this food? It's awful. It's just the best bit was the fruit salad tin. Just like the normal shitty fruit salad and syrup tins that we get over here. I like that. It's guilty pleasure.
I do.
But it was awful. As a fighting ration, it was terrible. And everything came with crackers. So the only carbohydrate source was crackers. Endless. It's like, how the hell are these guys supposed to eat?
Just everything on crackers. Everything.
It was amazing. Like, 8 packs of crackers. It was like, what? How are the guys going to do this? They're going to be like, it's just the worst.
Especially when you're on water ration as well.
It's just the worst thing. And all these Italians, it's brilliant. I spent ages conversing with them. I was like, have you actually eaten this? No. Well, shut up. And if you actually eaten this thing, and then I had a couple of Italian soldiers turn up and went, yeah, it's fucking awful. This is just the shittest thing ever. I can't believe they made us eat this. We're like, thanks, fair enough.
Cruel.
Definitely like, it's like it's developed in the 80s and early 80s, and they just never changed it. The tastiest ration is French. What I find really funny is that all these with ration packs, as all the national stereotypes come up. It's what happens. The American one's full of V numbers. The French one is cuisine, but there's not enough calories in it.
So you get a bottle of Merlot.
Yeah, a bottle of Merlot. Bizarrely, the Italian one's terrible. I don't quite understand that. And they were like, "Oh, you need to mix the coffee powder to espresso strength." You're like, "Yeah, but I did, and it's still awful. It's just bad."
Mix it with the crackers.
Make it that thick you can spread it on a cracker.
I think, but you got to, it's all well and good me eating it in the house and not doing very much, but you got to put it in perspective of, like you've just said. You don't have unlimited access to water, so you can't just you can't just provide people with crackers. It's just not going to work, right? So you got to be sensible about how is it going to work. I think the best I've had Dutch, Italian, Polish is quite nice. Russian is quite interesting. I think the best one's British in terms of maybe not the tastiest, maybe not the most convenient, maybe not, but in terms of like a ration to go and do stuff all day and still be on your feet.
Yeah, keeps you fed and watered, sort of thing.
Keeps you fed, watered. There's interesting. There's tastes. I think the British one is, again, I'm British, so of course I'm going to say that, right? But also British cuisine. People love, I don't think the Europeans often don't quite get how varied British cuisine now is. Yeah. And the British ration pack, fine, it has sausages and beans. It also has extremely nice curry. Actually, I had a chicken biryani once, and it was like, this is one of the best bits of chicken, one of the best curries I've ever had, out of a boil in the bag.
Was it the Indonesian pork and rice?
Yeah,
that is banging.
There's loads of good stuff.
Some of that hot doggedy dog sauce in there.
That's amazing. So I was told this by a major from the artillery, and he said, well, the reason the hot stuff in the British ration packs are really good is the only people, if you get, like we had a British ration pack, you get that little feedback card at the bottom, which of course everyone ignores. Only people that fill that in is the Gurkhas.
Really?
So, and they're quite discerning. So of course they're like, yeah, add this to the curry. We need more spice. We need and that all goes off. So all the curries in British ration packs are amazing because all the Gurkhas just keep sending them feedback all the time.
Fair play.
So I think if you're going to buy a ration pack, to actually, I really like the Russian ones. I really like the Polish ones. But if I'm going to go and buy one for a weekend, just out of sheer convenience, you can build them off the supermarket shelf quite easily. Out of sheer convenience, I'll get a British one.
Yeah, fair play, nice.
There's stuff to munch on, there's stuff to eat at night, there's hot drinks, there's cold drinks, it's just so varied.
Right, we've got time for one more question. I'm really sorry to everyone that's asked. Well, I've been trying to get through them as quick as we can. But we'll have to get Tom back on because genuinely there's just so much going on in the chat. The one I wanted to go back to specifically was from Andy. What's the most enjoyable format you do on your channel?
Scary. The ones I feel kind of best about, and this is going to be a two-part answer. The ones I feel best about are kind of the range stuff, like the myth busting. How far does BB go? How accurate is a heavy BB? The stuff I genuinely enjoy the most is ration pack reviews, where they get no views. I just find, so one of them's about problem solving and answering questions and all that kind of stuff. And one of them is just, I just really like eating food, right?
Wonderful.
I just find it really
wonderful thing to do.
And I find that kind of national stereotype in food absolutely fascinating. It's just we laugh so much, whether it's my stepdaughter Erin or Gadge comes on or whoever. We just find it's just brilliant. So this void, we get this thing, particularly when it's some sealed package, and we have no idea what we're about to eat. It's just hilarious. It's just a shame no one watches them, but we'll carry on doing them because I find them really funny.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I certainly watch them. They're very good fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if any of our audience, Tom, want to go and find you, how can they do that?
So I am Anvil Airsoft TV on YouTube.
I did have the answer already queued up.
Oh, look at this.
I do also post on Facebook as Anvil Airsoft TV, and I'm on Instagram as, I don't actually remember, I think it's AATV_airsoft or something along those lines. But yeah. But mainly it's the YouTube channel.
Cool. Yeah, some cracking videos on there. Working nights, I usually get to get an episode in before I go out on track. So it's usually park up nice and quick, getting paperwork done. So right, okay, set that up on the steering wheel. Here we go.
But hopefully a lot more. Yeah, we've been a bit on the slow side recently. The weather has just been appalling.
That's what we're itching for now.
And what I don't want to do is just knock out some nonsense on the table, and then no one watches it, and it just kills your algorithm, and then it's just not worth it. So I'm just going to wait until time is right, and we'll get some good stuff out.
Look forward to that, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, mate. Genuinely, go and check out Anvil Airsoft because he does some awesome bits and pieces, both Tom and Gadge. I mean, I know the one that got me sort of involved in kind of watching your stuff was the
wonder where you're going with that then.
No, it's just something weird. Was the I think it was the MilSim, the ultimate MilSim one that you did.
Yeah, it was fun. That was really fun to do, actually.
Which I highly recommend. We'll post a link to that on the socials for anyone to go and have a watch, because that was hilarious. And from then on, I just started binge watching various episodes. So
no, but that one's very different, because that's but that doesn't come naturally. That took a lot of work, because I'm not a natural kind of entertainer. People probably don't believe that, but I find I'm actually quite shy, and that kind of like acting quite difficult. We wanted a follow up to that. Is like the MilSim morons go to a skirmish. So,
genuinely. Like, so our MilSim team, we were at a skirmish. I think it was like a year and a half ago now, and we were playing it as a skirmish. So we kind of all clustered up. We're all like, excellent perimeter. We didn't move forward at any point. We just sort of like had huddled up, and we were like, almost like, yeah, right, we're on stag. Like, who's is there anybody come in? It's like we spent like half an hour just like, we should probably like push forward to like where everyone's actually playing.
It's hilarious because you see like I was going to say MilSim at a skirmish day, like you say, right, okay, it's like capture the flag or whatever it is. It's like 3, 2, 1, game on, and like whistle blows,
cream on,
whistle blows, and like people start tearing towards the flag, and then you can see who does MilSim. Everyone else goes. It just like really slowly moves into the bushes.
He spends 30 minutes setting his radio up, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Get the comms channels.
30 minutes sending my radio up for me.
So there's definitely some material, because that went down really well. We were quite surprised. Got a lot of dislikes, but hey, what would you expect? People don't like it.
Yeah,
can't please everyone, mate.
But we thought it was hilarious, and most people seem to think it was pretty funny too. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
No, cool.
So if
stuff.
anyone wants to get in touch with Tom, obviously you can use their own socials. If for some reason you need to get in touch with us to get in touch with Tom, you can do so at our email, which is nofochat@hotmail.com. Our Instagram is November Foxtrot, at November_Foxtrot_NoFo. Facebook is November Foxtrot NoFo. YouTube is youtube.com/c/November Foxtrot. And you can also get in touch on our website, which is novemberfoxtrot.co.uk. The last, hang on, I'm being shouted at to put the link up. There you go. The last comment I did just want to put up was Les. So Les said, I think I need to watch your channel, young man. Apologies for not knowing who you are. I'll have a mooch.
It's nice to be called. It's nice to be called. It's nice at the age of 45. It's quite nice to be called young. So thanks for that, Les. I appreciate that quite a lot.
Well, Les is pushing 65, so he's going to punch me straight in the fucking face when he sees me next.
Next week, we're going to be doing an episode on boots. We're going to be kind of rehashing some of the previous stuff we've done, looking at improvements we've made. So it'll be sort of boots, socks, and the like. We also have a little bit of exciting news. Yep, a bit of exciting news for next week. Sorry, Liz, just called you a wanker.
Although they are my hands, I'm not going to get my feet up here and wheel them about. That's just fucking weird.
We have a bit of exciting news for next week in that we have a new regular host going to be joining us. We'll be going from 2 to 3 people on a regular basis. So no sort of secrets being given until next week. So join us. And you can find out who that person is. And Andy has also asked when is Lars going to do the ending.
It's Les, isn't it?
Knows how to join
definitely Les. Les is definitely coming on. That's
So right. Frontline events, by the way, I'll get in touch with you. I want to get you guys on at some point as well.
Yeah, Dan's really cool. So yeah, well worth having a chat with him.
Oh, cool. Right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you ever so much. We'll definitely get you back on in the future, and we can carry on answering some of these questions because it's been. I've enjoyed tonight. I make notes throughout the episodes, and like there's all these things that people talk about. I'm like, I've got to research that afterwards. So yeah,
no, it's been good. It's been fantastic. So if we can get you back, maybe get Gadge on as well.
Yeah,
we'll do
yeah, no, it'll be fun. Yeah,
wicked
lovely stuff.
Right, I've gone blurry. Excellent, nice way to end the show. Right, say goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you later. Cheers.